For most of America, Ripa and Mark Consuelos have been fixtures on morning television for over 2 decades. Millions of viewers watch them banner through headlines, celebrity gossip, and holiday cooking segments every weekday morning. But long before either of them became live royalty in the eyes of daytime TV audiences, they were simply 2 young parents raising a baby boy named Michael in the middle of one of the most public marriages in entertainment. To understand Michael Consuelos, it helps to understand exactly how public that marriage has always been. Ripa began her career on the soap opera All My Children, where she played the role of Haley Vaughn starting in the early 1990s. It was on that same set that she met a young actor named Mark Consuelos, who had been cast as Mateo Santos. The two married in 1996, a year before their first son was born, and their relationship, soap opera meet-cute included, has since become part of daytime television lore, retold on morning talk shows for decades. Mark Consuelos, born in Zaragoza, Spain, and raised largely in the United States, built his own early career around that same soap, playing Mateo Santos on and off between 1995 and 2010, before eventually landing the role that would define his career for a new generation of viewers. Hiram Lodge, the ruthless crime boss at the center of the CW's Riverdale, which ran from 2017 to 2023. Michael Joseph Consuelos was born on June 2, 1997, making him the eldest of Ripa and Mark Consuelos' 3 children. His sister, Lola Grace Consuelos, arrived in June 2001. Memorably, the pregnancy was inadvertently revealed on live television during a psychic reading segment on one of Kelly's test run episodes, Filling It on Live, with Regis. His younger brother, Joaquin Antonio Consuelos, was born in February 2003. For nearly 3 decades now, Michael has existed in a strange kind of spotlight. Famous enough that tabloids track his birthdays, but private enough that most people couldn't tell you what he actually does for a living. That's finally starting to change. Ripa has hosted live in some form since February 2001. First alongside the late Regis Philbin, later with Michael Strahan, and now with Ryan Seacrest, and, since 2023, her own husband Mark Consuelos as co-host. That means Michael essentially grew up inside a live national television studio. He wasn't just the son of famous people. He was, on occasion, actual content. Ripa has shared stories on air about her children for years, including anecdotes from their childhood bedtime routines and family vacations, and Michael has periodically shown up on the show himself, both as a subject of his mother's stories and, later, as a guest. That kind of exposure could easily push a kid toward chasing the spotlight himself, or just as easily push him to run from it entirely. Michael's path ended up being something in between. He didn't avoid the entertainment industry his parents built their careers in, but he also didn't rush toward the most obvious spotlight available to him. Ripa has written about that balancing act herself. In her 2022 memoir, Live Wire, Long-Winded Short Stories, an instant New York Times bestseller, Ripa devoted chapters to motherhood, her marriage, and her decades-long career, describing her own approach to raising 3 children largely out of the tabloid glare despite her own constant visibility. She's written candidly about being risk-averse and frequently prone to regret, even as her career pushed her further into the public eye, and about how she and Mark tried to give their children room to be normal kids despite growing up recognizable. Talking about the book in interviews, Ripa noted she wrote much of it during a stretch when her family was scattered in different directions. Mark was away filming Riverdale in Vancouver. One child was already out of house. Another was living in a college apartment. And her youngest was finishing high school, a small detail that captures just how spread out the family had become by the early 2020s, even as they remained publicly tied together through the show. When it came time for college, Michael studied film and television production at New York University's Tisch School of the Arts, graduating in 2020. Rather than leaning purely into acting, the field where his last name would have opened doors instantly, he gravitated first toward the technical and creative side of filmmaking, directing, screenwriting, and cinematography. As a child, he'd already picked up a couple of small credits, including a guest appearance on the animated series Duck Dodgers and voice work on Nickelodeon's Go, Diego Go, the kind of low-key kid actor jobs that plenty of industry families' children pick up without it meaning much for their future. He also worked as a production assistant on the ABC sitcom The Goldbergs, a grinding, entry-level job that built an actual resume rather than relying purely on connections. During the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, when Ripa was producing segments of Live from Home, Michael reportedly helped his mother put together some of that content, hands-on production work that, according to Ripa, played a role in nudging him toward wanting to act himself. The credit that actually changed things connects directly back to his father's biggest role. Mark Consuelos played Hiram Lodge, one of the central antagonists on the CW's Riverdale, for the show's entire 7-season run. In 2018, Michael landed a small part, playing a younger version of that same character in a flashback sequence, appearing in the story around the same time his father won a Teen Choice Award for the role. He said he had to audition for the part like anyone else, rather than being handed it because of his last name. He returned to Riverdale in a bigger way in 2021, once again playing young Hiram Lodge, across 2 episodes total between 2018 and 2021. Both Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos made a point of publicly celebrating the casting online, with Consuelos calling a bucket list moment for the family and Ripa sharing her own tribute the same day. Michael himself later told people that landing the role felt like checking something off his own bucket list, that the cast and crew made him feel welcome right away, and that acting opposite his father was a surreal but genuinely fun experience. When he later posted a behind-the-scenes photo from set, Ripa commented in mock disbelief at how much he resembled his father, a resemblance that's become something of a running joke in the family and among fans, since photos of the two side by side are frequently mistaken for the same person at different ages. The likeness became enough of a talking point that, in 2022, people included both father and son in its Sexiest Man Alive issue the same year. Mark Consuelos has spoken publicly about what Riverdale meant to his own career, describing the show's devoted, international fan base as one of its most rewarding aspects. In interviews, he's recalled being recognized by fans in Greece, France, and Italy, and comparing the kind of passionate audience reaction to his earlier years on All My Children, a full-circle sense of fandom that, in a smaller but real way, Michael got to experience firsthand once he stepped into the same fictional world as his father. Michael's acting resume expanded further from there. In 2022, he starred in the Lifetime television movie, Let's Get Physical, playing a supporting character named Petey. The film, a fictionalized, ripped from the headlines true crime story about a fitness instructor secretly running a prostitution ring, was executive produced by Melojo Productions, the company founded by Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos, alongside actress Jenna Dewan. Melojo itself has become a significant part of the family's professional footprint well beyond that one project. The company has developed and produced content across a wide range of networks, including Bravo, Logo, VH1, E!, CMT, HGTV, WeTV, TLC, Oxygen, ABC Signature, Hulu, and Discovery, effectively giving the Consuelos family a hand in shaping the same reality and lifestyle television landscape Michael would later go to work in directly. In an interview promoting Let's Get Physical, Michael talked about learning from both his parents, picking up producing know-how from watching them work, and acting lessons specifically from working alongside his father on Riverdale. The following year brought his most acclaimed credit to date, a role as Mr. Derek Cross in the short film DeSocia, which went on to win Best Episodic at the Lighthouse International Film Festival. Michael publicly thanked his cast, crew, and the casting directors behind the project when the win was announced, a smaller festival circuit credit, but one that reflected a different kind of validation than working on a project his own parents had a producing hand in. Altogether, Michael has built up roughly 7 acting credits across television and film, spanning children's animation, a network teen drama, a true crime Lifetime movie, and an award-winning independent short. A resume that looks less like someone coasting on a family name and more like someone piecing together a career the way most working actors do. By 2023, Michael had shifted his focus away from acting and toward production, landing a job working behind the scenes at Bravo. He's worked on some of the network's biggest reality franchises, including The Real Housewives and Summer House, shows built almost entirely on drama, conflict, and larger-than-life personalities, which makes for an interesting contrast with Michael's low-key public presence. Bravo executive and longtime Watch What Happens Live host Andy Cohen, who has known the Consuelos family for years through his friendship with Kelly Ripa, called Michael's arrival at the network a full-circle moment when Michael guest hosted Live with Kelly and Mark in July 2023. It's a small but telling detail. The family friend who watched Michael grow up ended up becoming a colleague. Despite working adjacent to reality television's biggest stars, people involved with Summer House have noted that Michael keeps a professional distance from the cast. There isn't much social overlap between production side he works on and the personalities in front of the camera. That fits the pattern that's followed him for years. Close enough to the industry to build a real career in it, but not interested in becoming a tabloid fixture himself. Away from cameras entirely, Michael has talked about a genuine passion for horror as a genre and has spent time working on his own novels, though nothing has been published yet. He's also an avid reader, frequently turning to audiobooks when he doesn't have a physical book on hand. When his mother released Livewire, Michael read the entire book shortly after it came out, later describing the experience as something that made him proud, watching years of his mother's work come together into a finished product. It's worth noting just how much of that book touches on the family's private life turned public. Ripa wrote candidly about her early years navigating a male-dominated industry on All My Children, about tension in her working relationship with Regis Philbin that later drew media attention when the book was published, and about balancing 3 children with a career that essentially never had an off switch. For Michael, reading it wasn't just supporting his mother's creative work. It was reading his own childhood filtered through her perspective as an adult for the first time. The Mark and Michael resemblance has become one of the most talked about details among fans who follow the family. It's not just casual family resemblance. Kelly Ripa has pointed out publicly on multiple occasions, and it's become something of a recurring bit in interviews and on the show itself. On the domestic side, Michael lives in Brooklyn and, as of 2026, added a new member to his household, a dog named Rosie. Kelly Ripa has joked publicly about being a grandparent to Rosie, noting that the new pup quickly asserted herself as a more dominant personality compared to Kelly and Mark's own dog at home. Michael is the oldest of 3, and his siblings have carved out their own distinct paths, each one echoing and diverging from his in different ways. Lola Grace Consuelos followed her older brother to NYU's Tisch School of the Arts, but pursued a degree in music production rather than film, aiming to build a career in music specifically rather than the broader entertainment industry her parents and brother had gravitated toward. She spent a semester abroad in London, where her parents visited frequently, before graduating and releasing her debut single in August 2022, officially launching her career as a singer-songwriter. Joaquin Antonio Consuelos took the most divergent path of the 3. Kelly has written that Joaquin showed an early interest in drama and theater as a kid, but he ultimately found his footing elsewhere, wrestling, a passion partly inspired by his father's own athleticism. Joaquin became the first of the Consuelos children to leave New York City for college, enrolling at the University of Michigan in 2021 as a theater performance major within the School of Music, Theater, and Dance, and joining the university's wrestling team, officially making Kelly and Mark empty nesters for the first time. More recently, Joaquin has returned to the entertainment side of the family business, appearing in a Broadway revival of Death of a Salesman. Across interviews, the family has generally been described as close, with the 3 siblings appearing together at events and on social media, and Kelly Ripa frequently featuring all 3 of her children in her own public reflections about parenting and watching them grow up. What makes Michael Consuelos a story worth paying attention to isn't scandal. There isn't any. It's the opposite. He had every opportunity to lean entirely on his parents' fame and chose instead to build a resume the slow way. Production assistant jobs, voiceover work, auditions he didn't win on name recognition alone, and eventually a full career shift from acting into production at a major network. He stepped into a role his father originated, but treated it as something to earn rather than inherit. He watched his parents build a production company from scratch and turn that same interest into his own behind-the-camera career, just at a different company, on different shows, carving out his own footing within an industry his family already had deep roots in. He spent years working in a business built on visibility, while keeping his own public profile relatively quiet. For a family that lives large parts of their lives on national television, a mother who has hosted a live morning show for a quarter century, a father who spent years playing one of TV's most recognizable villains, siblings pursuing music and Broadway theater, Michael Consuelos has carved out something that looks almost old-fashioned by comparison, a career built on actual work, one credit at a time. Mostly out of the spotlight, his parents never really got to leave.